What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're a new viewer, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also if you are someone who's been watching my channel but hasn't yet subscribed, then please make sure that you hit that subscribe button, because it really helps my channel out and it will ensure that I can do more videos like this one today. But we are back with another Buffy video, and as you know, these are my absolute favorite videos, and I feel like I say that all the time, but Buffy videos are really my favorite videos because it's my favorite show of all time. Now in this video I will be reviewing episode 5 of season 1, and it's basically called Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. Now this episode, I would say, is a step up from the previous episode, which was Teacher's Pet. I know a lot of people didn't like that episode, and you guys told me in the comments that you didn't like that episode or weren't really a fan of it, but this one is a lot better, and we're getting back more into that Buffy sort of universe that we all enjoy, I'm sure. Before I get into the video, grab your snacks, grab your tea, grab your coffee, and when we come back we'll be reviewing episode 5. Now, before I get into reviewing the episode, just give you a quick little rundown of what the episode is about. It's basically Buffy just wanting to be a normal teenage girl. As we know from the whole season so far, she just wants to be a normal teenage girl and go and have fun with her friends, go out on dates, do things like that. But the Vampire Slayer calls, and she has obviously a job to do. But in this episode, we see her sort of neglect her responsibilities as the Slayer to some extent, and ignore what Giles is basically telling her about the prophecy and the importance of it. And we see her basically just dropping everything to go out for love, and when a guy basically asks her out, and she just puts all her focus on going out on a date rather than the prophecy. So if we look at the episode, it basically starts off with the Master, as we know from previous episodes, reading a prophecy again. He loves to read his prophecy, and he's basically doing all this creepy stuff, you know, as he does in his lair, as we know from previous episodes.
Whoever aliens shall greet him and usher him.
Then we see Buffy getting asked out on a date. She's finally asked out on her first date at the school by a guy called Owen, who's this basically sensitive hunk from school, and this is the first time we're basically meeting him. But he asks Buffy out, and of course she accepts, because why not? She wants to go out on a date, she wants to be a normal teenage girl. And we just see Buffy basically, her whole sort of mind is just on that date, and she really wants to impress this guy. Because, you know, we're only in episode 5, she is still new at this school, she hasn't really gone out with people or done anything like that, and the only other guy that she has kind of shown a little bit of interest in is Angel, but Angel is basically nowhere to be found most of the time. And then we skip to the school cafeteria when Buffy has to basically fight off Cordelia to sit at the same table as Owen, because I think Cordelia also likes Owen, and I think a lot of girls like Owen, so they're almost sort of just fighting over him, arguing over him, as you would in high school when you're a teenager. But as we know, he asked Buffy out on a date to the Bronze later that evening, so obviously he must like Buffy in some way. However, Giles has basically found out about the prophecy from a ring that they found at the cemetery, and he is basically convinced that the Anointed One will rise tonight, and he needs to get Buffy on track and ready. If anything goes down, he needs her ready, he needs her focused, he needs her just basically on standby in case something happens. But as we know, Buffy's stubborn, she won't listen, she's too preoccupied with the date she has that same day. So it's basically like, okay, should I go on a date with this really good looking, sensitive guy, that first guy that's basically asked me out, or should I get ready for the prophecy that may or may not rise? Which one do you think Buffy picks? I know which one she picks. But despite Buffy's protests against it, and against basically just waiting for something to happen with the prophecy, they basically just sit at the cemetery waiting for just anything, a vampire, whatever, and they're basically there just for hours just waiting for something to happen. And then nothing happens. And although Giles is still convinced that something is about to go down, even though nothing has happened for hours, he just basically says, okay, let's call it a night, let's go home. If anything happens, obviously we'll be ready. But Buffy, all she can think about is her date, and she basically just rushes to the Bronze to meet Owen. And at the same time, we see a van or a bus heading to Sunnydale. And in that bus we see a guy stand up and start to lecture all the passengers about God's judgment, and he's being very religious and talking to them and lecturing them, and everyone's just looking at him like, what's going on? And then suddenly a vampire walks in front of the van, and obviously that causes the van to just stop suddenly. And obviously at this point people don't know what's happened, why it's just suddenly stopped. And then we see other vampires just basically all just come out of nowhere and sort of go around the van and block people, and they start attacking people, even that religious guy. So it's kind of like, okay, he was giving this speech about this religious sort of speech, and then now we've got these vampires who are obviously evil, just come and attack everyone basically out of nowhere. But as we know, this is Sunnydale, they're entering Sunnydale, and this is basically the heart of where all the vampires are, and it's built on the Hellmouth. And then we skip to the next morning where Owen asked Buffy out on another date, so he must have really liked their first date. So he asked her out again, and she's obviously super excited to be going out and being asked out again, let alone being asked out on one date. Now she's obviously been asked out on another date with the same guy, and he basically gives her a pocket watch, just to sort of say, don't miss our date next time, kind of thing. So it's kind of cute. So it's basically like, here you go, you can't miss our date again because now you've got a watch to tell you the time. And obviously back then people didn't have smartphones to just check the time, but we know that Buffy didn't miss it because she was running late, or you know, for just stupid things. We know she missed it because she was at the cemetery with Giles. And Buffy's basically like so excited, she jumps at the opportunity, but poor Xander, he just looks so jealous because obviously we know he likes Buffy. From previous episodes, he's pretty much obsessed with Buffy at this point. But he, you know, he's not going to win Buffy over, let's be realistic. Xander has basically been friend-zoned since episode 1 with Buffy. And then later that evening, Giles shows up at Buffy's house, and he's like waving a newspaper around to basically show her that a few people were found dead. Was it 5 or 6 people were found dead? And obviously we know that's the people that were in that van that was heading to Sunnydale. So he's basically just wanting to warn her how serious this is, that something is coming, that his calculations are right, something is going to happen in Sunnydale, and she needs to be alert and ready. But Buffy insists on going to the Bronze. Obviously we know she has another date, she doesn't want to obviously miss it. And then Giles just goes to the Sunnydale funeral home alone, because obviously Buffy doesn't want to go. But unfortunately there are vampires present to go and get the Anointed One, which is not good for Giles, and they basically trap him, and now he needs rescuing, but Buffy's nowhere to be found other than at the Bronze. But Xander and Willow, being the little detectives that they are, basically follow Giles and have realised that he's been captured, and they run to the Bronze to go tell Buffy, which now, again, poor Buffy, all she wants to do is go on a date, try and go on a second date with this guy that she likes, and now something else has happened and she has to obviously leave and go rescue Giles. But before we go on a rescue mission for Giles, Cordelia basically tries to step in and break up Buffy and Owen's little date, because we know Cordelia likes Owen and she doesn't understand why he's there with Buffy. And also Angel tries to step in there and break up their little date, because although Angel hasn't shown it, Angel does like Buffy, and he's going to start showing it a little bit more and more as the episodes go along. But then obviously Buffy, she's smart, she knows what's going on. She figures out what Xander and Willow are trying to do and what they want, and she tries to basically dump Owen there and then, because she doesn't want to put him in any danger, and she doesn't want another person finding out that she is the Slayer. But Owen doesn't listen. He's not having any of it. He's like, I want to come, I want a little bit of adventure, I want a little bit of danger. But this is basically setting up for the point later on in the episode where we actually find out why he wanted to date Buffy the first. But then at the funeral home, we see Borba rise as a vampire. He was the person in the band who was doing all those religious lectures. So he's actually risen now as a vampire, which is not good because Owen's there as well, and we know Owen doesn't really know what's going on. Then we see Buffy kill Borba because she's angry that he has killed her date, and she basically just is like, I'm so over this, you're gone, bye. The next morning we see Owen super excited about what they've just gone through, this whole adventure that he's been on with Buffy. He's basically just so hyped that the fact that he's done something so fun and different, and it's been like an adventurous date that he hasn't experienced before. But obviously Buffy's like, you could have got yourself killed, there's vampires, like there's nothing exciting about this, I saved your life. Basically says this is what he likes about Buffy, and this is what I mentioned earlier where we find out his actual intentions about why he wanted to date Buffy, because he knew that there was something going on with her, she was mysterious, but he didn't quite know what, and he just wanted that thrill and excitement that would come along with dating Buffy. And Buffy realizes that there's no way that she can have a relationship with him purely because he wants to put himself in these kind of situations, whereas she doesn't understand why, and she's just trying to protect people and doesn't understand why people would want to put themselves in those situations, where she just wants to be a normal girl, but she has no choice but to fight vampires and go on these adventures and do things like that. So to her it's like, I'm not going to date someone who wants to put themselves in danger just to date her, and that's the only reason why he wants to date her, whereas that's her job and she has no choice. And then because she's broken up with Owen, Giles tries to comfort her, sort of like a fatherly figure, giving her advice, and he basically just talks about how much it was a burden to him finding out his sort of legacy being the Watcher when he was only 10 years old, and obviously he was young, he had all this responsibility put upon him, and he couldn't go on dates and do things like that the same way Buffy can't. He couldn't have just a typical sort of childhood and teenage life the same way Buffy can't. So he obviously understands what she's going through, but he's there to guide her because he knows how hard it is, and he knows what she needs to expect and all the work that's going to take to be the Slayer. So he really does understand, and he gives her some great advice, and he comforts her just like a father would with his daughter. But they both then agree that at least the Master will be very unhappy that Buffy has destroyed the Anointed One, and he will basically just come after them even more because now they have destroyed something that he is working towards. However, we cut to the Master's lair where he is basically overjoyed because the real Anointed One has risen. So the one we thought was the Anointed One that Buffy destroyed was not, and the real one is there in the lair with the Master. So he's very happy, but obviously Buffy and Giles and the Scooby Gang do not know this. So they think that they are one step ahead of the Master, but they're actually not. So as we thought that the Anointed One was that Borba guy who was doing the lectures to the people on the van and turned into a vampire, it's actually not. It was actually a young boy that was on the van as well that same time. So he's actually the one that they thought they killed, but obviously it ended up being a young boy instead of Borba. So that's basically the end of this episode. It was a quick little review rundown of what the episode is. There was a lot going on. It was literally going back and forth from Buffy trying to date to Giles trying to stop the Master and try and obviously convince Buffy that the prophecy may happen. And yeah, it was a good episode. It was fun because there was a lot going on. We got to see Buffy more as a normal teenage girl, going on dates and things like that, and that actual conflict between her as a teenager and then her as a Slayer, and how the two worlds sort of collide and how they just don't work. It's either one or the other, and that's what Giles wants. It's like, put your focus on being the Slayer, and Buffy's like, no, I want to be a teenage girl. So we kind of see how hard that is for her to date, and to find someone who she can date but also not put in these situations where if she is on a date then something happens and, you know, she puts that guy in danger basically, which happened with Owen. But we'll explore that more in later episodes, and as she obviously dates and meets new people, and then how she sort of starts building that relationship with Angel as well. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit the like button. If you did enjoy this episode, let me know in the comments below. We sort of came back to more of the vampire focus master than we did in the previous episode, which is good, and I know a lot of people prefer. So let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, because you're clearly still watching to the end and you must have enjoyed this video. But thanks again everyone, and I'll see you guys in my next video.